So just sit comfortably. I wanted to speak a little bit today about how we can cultivate a sort of inner peace within ourselves, a sort of equanimity within ourselves. And I think that I'm thinking about this because there is a lot of turmoil in the world. Maybe there's always a lot, but it seems to be a lot right now. It's on people's minds. Both internationally in terms of war and the terrible injustice and suffering that comes with that. The way things are articulated in the media and in conversations. And also people are, personally, I think, many people are feeling stressed. Right now we've got massive fuel price increases, which is impacting a lot of people, and worrying about what does this mean, where is this going, what effect is it going to have. So I just wanted to examine a little bit, how do we find a kind of inner stability when things around us are not so stable. Not just for our own benefit, even though it's really lovely to feel the capacity to be stable when things are unsteady, even though that is great. It's more because it benefits those around us when we're stable. So cultivating this internal peace of mind. And it also means we're more likely to be harmonious with others. We're less likely to actually add to the confusion and the chaos and the mess if we're more internally stable. And I came across a quote from Norman Fisher the other day, that suffering is the failure of the imagination to see things as they truly are. So most of us, in varying degrees, are seeing things in a very distorted way. All sorts of different distortions depending on just our circumstances in life and our personality and our tendencies, all the influences. But all of us are seeing things in a distorted way, and some of us are seeing things in a more distorted, in ways that cause more upset and more confusion for ourselves and others. So Norman Fisher talks about it as this failure of our imagination. Like, what are we failing to see? We're failing to see that we are actually boundaryless. There's no real true boundary between ourselves and anything else. Whether it's other people or animals or plants or the mineral world of sort of minerals, the non-sentient world. There isn't actually truly, in essence, any real boundary. There's just an appearance of boundary. So that's the failure of our imagination. Every time we're tempted to have just a real sense of like alienation from anyone, that alienation, if we think that's the whole picture, that's a failure of the imagination. And when we can hold kind of all the time, at least, maybe not always loudly, but just have in there this sense of connectedness with everything, we're likely to have a greater just internal stability. Because then we're always intimate with things all the time. We're always surrounded by things, sometimes lots of things, sometimes not so many things. But there's always objects, but usually there's always life too, in varying degrees, not too far away from us. So we are in fact intimate with things all the time, But this failure of the imagination means that we don't notice. And not only that we don't notice, we sometimes think that we definitely aren't, that we are separate from everything. And then a similar quote from Suzuki Roshi is that enlightenment is seeing things as they are. So that's all it is. It's like it's nothing kind of strange. It's actually just like, oh, this is how things are. Truly seeing that this is how things are. So how, the question, how do we cultivate that? How do we shift from what our senses crudely say to us, which is that, that we're all separate, like right now. We could say that there's 8 of us in this room. Our senses give us this sort of, it's like poorly pixelated. That's kind of way sometimes I think of it. It's like it's very unclear. It's rough. It's a rough way of seeing things. It's a kind of rough. It's sort of clunky. So part of what our practice is and the teachings are is to not be taken, not so much not taken in by it, but know that there's so much more than the way things just appear to our senses. So we need to cultivate these teachings about non-separation. We call them emptiness. Boundarylessness is, I think, a helpful word. We really spend time both with our intellect, contemplating what does it mean that there's no real boundary. To really contemplate that with our mind, using our intellect as we're driving along, just instead of thinking of traffic maybe as kind of an obstacle for us from getting to A to B, just to kind of soften a little bit and be more creative and think like, look how amazing it is that we are all cooperating at 80 kilometres an hour. Isn't this extraordinary? We're not hitting each other. Well, I don't know these people, but they're not hitting me with their cars. It's really quite a remarkable thing, this incredible cooperation that's going on. And all of these cars are working because there's mechanics in mechanic shops fixing them on a regular basis. You just bring our imagination, our creativity into our habitual thinking. So instead of just thinking a very ordinary, easy thought like, oh, bloody traffic, rather than thinking a thought like that, we're practitioners. So then we sort of, let's see if I can just go down a couple of notches and see that the sort of the network that's behind what's going on. Or if you have a conflict with someone, instead of fixating on something very simple like I am here and that they are there and I don't agree with them and they don't agree with me, it's like 2 things, very rough. Can we just bring our creativity to see the complexity of all their history that makes them the way they are, all of my history that makes me the way I am, just all of the factors. That's how we kind of move towards this boundarylessness. So that's applying the intellect to it. And then we can also, in Zazen, it's not so much the intellect, it's more kind of in the body. We just you can think of it a bit like opening your heart. When we're in Zazen, we just open I sometimes think of it as like my mind opens too. Instead of my mind just being this thing here, open the mind very wide, open the heart very wide. And rather than thinking about it, just being it, sort of being boundaryless. And just being that way. So we can do that in Zazen. And when we feel that way, it just creates a stability because our teachings would say it's more accurate. Whenever we're thinking inaccurately, we're going to have some disturbance. And the more accurately we think, the less disturbance. So in a way, you can use that just as a guide. If ever I'm feeling more unsettled, I assume that I'm thinking in a delusional way. Like, oh, in what way am I thinking delusionally that I'm feeling like unnecessarily stressed about this thing? especially if this thing isn't happening and I'm stressed about it, it's not actually happening, I'm just thinking about it, I'm just generating images in my mind and it's stressing me out. I go, oh, what am I doing? Oh, I'm being enamored by, I'm being kind of tricked that I'm thinking my thoughts are real right now and they're occupying me and I'm getting very fixated. And so then I can pull back and go, oh, I'm inside my house. It's made of mud bricks. Look at that. Or, what's that sound? It's the lyrebirds. They're making a lot of noise. I think it's because the rain is coming. You know, like just be more in accord with the actual reality that we're in. And one of the ways that this is talked about is all of our words and concepts that we have. You can call them marks, like labels, marks, M-A-R-K-S, marks. And so part of what we can do with both our intellect and just in our emotional world is notice how many marks, how we're thinking in marks and how we believe them. You know, we believe them. And our the way to wisdom and equanimity is to be able to not believe them, but still see that they're useful. So use them while not believing them. That's the art, is to use the marks, like I can use the mark Neti, and not believe it. And as long as I don't believe it, then it doesn't matter if someone calls me an idiot. I can go like, fine, go ahead. You know, I can use it, but not believe it. So it's called examining the marks. We examine the marks. We can use them, but not believe them. If you try to not believe them and also not use them, you can't function in the world. Because we personally experience them as true. Like I experience myself as Neti. I mean, I do, and I know I do. And everybody else experiences themselves, and animals experience themselves as existing in whatever way they do that. So it would be lacking compassion to say, the marks aren't real and therefore I'm not going to use them or have anything to do with them. I mean, we would just die. We have to use them. But we've got to be careful not to get too caught in the marks, in the teaching of don't believe the marks, or we might not be compassionate. So we respect them, we use them, and we don't believe them. I'm just going to read a paragraph from this book called Making Sense of Mind Only. It's a very difficult book to read. We're studying it with my teacher, Kokyo Osho. And I just want to read a few sentences and then maybe go through them a little bit. This is a section on developing non-conceptual wisdom. So non-conceptual wisdom, you could say, is that sort of a more subtle wisdom. There's like the first layer of wisdom, which is just understanding the core teachings, that there's no separate independent self. Everything is impermanent in a state of continual flux. Buddha nature teachings, which is that there's no such thing as evil. That's another way you could put it. There's no such thing as evil. There's just beings worthy of respect that are often delusional, but there's no evil. So that can become more and more deeply understood, and the subtlety of its implications can be more deeply understood and embodied. The transformation from our ordinary, obscured understanding of the world to the pristine vision of reality as it is said to be brought about through a gradual process of cognitive and affective, which you could say sort of like heartfelt, affective purification, in which one directly realizes ever more subtle levels of emptiness, which we can say like boundarylessness, ever more subtle levels of emptiness, and lets go of ever more subtle forms of clinging, even to the Buddhist practices that brought one to these realizations. The basis for this fundamental transformation is non-conceptual wisdom. So this line, even to the Buddhist practices that brought one to these realizations, is quite subtle. So for us it might mean we appreciate the Buddhist teachings and we do Zazen, but we don't have this idea Zazen's the most important thing and everybody should do it. We don't go around trying to convince our family members to do it, or our neighbours to do it, or our partners to do it, or anything. They can see us doing it and they might decide they'd like to do it, but we're not hooked that Zazen is something that should be promoted. We're not hooked on the idea that Buddhism is something that should be promoted, because Buddhism doesn't actually exist. It's just a mark. It's just a mark. Zazen's just a mark. All of these things are just marks. So we use them and we do them, and we might respect them and appreciate them, and we choose them. Like I choose, this is what I've chosen. This is what we're choosing. But we don't want to think it's an actual thing, because if we think it's a thing, if we believe the mark, then we're going to start to kind of be constrained, because it's not true, it's not real. You can't find Zazen anywhere, you can't put it in a jar, you can't find Buddhism and put it under a microscope. It doesn't exist, it's an idea, but it's a very helpful one. So this transformation from our ordinary obscured understanding, and I like that it's saying obscured. It's not like people are trying to be bad or trying to be hurtful. Even when people think they're intentionally trying to hurt someone, when you look at it very closely and you unpack it, people are actually always trying to relieve their own distress. That's what they're always trying to do deep down. You've got to peel back the layers. And they think the best way to relieve their distress might be to bomb someone or to hurt someone or whatever people do, or to say ill things about another person. But even on the larger sort of structural levels, each of the players are believing various marks. They're believing various ideas as truly true, rather than useful or harmful. Because marks, of course, can be useful and they can also be harmful. So we have to be very careful with our use of concepts and words. We have to be careful. So the transformation from our ordinary obscured understanding of the world to the pristine vision of reality as it is. It's nice it says pristine vision of reality as it is. For me, that says that reality as it is actually magnificent. You know, the world is actually magnificent and pristine. There's nothing bad about the planet Earth as such. So to have this pristine vision of reality as it is said to be brought about through a gradual process of cognitive and affective purification. So it's gradual, we have to be patient, there's no quick fixes in our practice, it's just work that we put in, it's contemplation that we put in while we're driving or while we're doing the dishes or while we're lying in bed in the morning, contemplating, we're studying, we're reading, we're talking with each other. It's a gradual process of purification, and this is sort of purification as in just the shedding of mistaken views. It's not purifying some essential sinfulness or something. It's not that word, the way it's used in Zen has got slightly different meaning to how it's sometimes used in other places. It's more like, sometimes it's described that we're all like a beautiful piece of white silk. It's just that it got caught in the mud. It got stained, and through our zazen practice and our ethical conduct, we're purifying, we're washing the stains. That's all they are. They're not. We're the essential pure silk. We weren't born with these stains. They're just acquired, and so they can be purified. So through this process, we directly realize more and more subtle levels of emptiness, and let go of more and more subtle forms of clinging. And this is our experience. People talk about this, that they notice, I seem to be coping better with things. I'm not resisting reality as much as I used to. Bit by bit, I'm not resisting as much. And I can feel a kind of stability. People often describe that surprised. I'm surprised, I'm feeling more stable, even though this thing happened. Even though I lost my job or whatever it was. Yeah, so in here it goes on to talk about abandoning the marks. Which abandoning doesn't mean getting rid of completely, it just means not believing them. So don't believe our own thoughts. We're having them, they might be useful, they might be interesting, but whatever you do, don't believe them. Just use them beneficially. I came across another quote too from Eckhart Tolle. It was his definition of acceptance, but we could also call it definition of equanimity. For now, this is what this situation, this moment requires of me to do, and so I will do it willingly. So this is a kind of it is applied. For now, this is what this situation, this moment requires me to do. So this is what is happening right now. And what's required of me in terms of being a practitioner, I want to be beneficial. So I will do this thing that's required of me to do, not required by some God figure or parent figure or government figure or anything like that, but because I've received the precepts and I want to be a beneficial force in the world. The circumstance requires this of me to do something, let's say, and so I will do it willingly. And so the willingly is very important. That's where the equanimity comes in when there's something has happened, a response is required, we do it willingly. We might initially go like, oh God, I don't want to, but I will. I'll do it willingly. So just some thoughts for us to work on during this kind of somewhat tumultuous time. And another thing that's just happened in terms of unfortunate things happening is some of you have heard of Tassajara Zen Center in California. Very sadly, last night the main zendo, big beautiful main zendo, burned to the ground in a fire. Don't know the details yet because it only happened less than 24 hours ago. It wasn't a wildfire or anything, it was something electrical, I don't know. But yeah, things that we sometimes assume will always be there, of course, suddenly aren't. So it never occurred to me really that something like that would happen. I think it occurred to me that like a wildfire could come through, but that just like that, something, I'm sure we'll know in the next day or so. Yeah. So we have this mark of permanence, but it's just a mark. Things aren't permanent. They just seem permanent, because they conventionally do things hang around for a fair while. Yeah. So maybe we can dedicate today's talk and discussion to the people who will be, very feeling a lot of pain right now that beautiful space has gone. And it's good to think of things not to use the mark of good or bad, because who knows what's going to come next. There might be a great sort of focus of energy might arise from this, and something really, many, many wonderful things might arise from this too. So, yeah. So would anybody online or here in the Zendo like to offer any thoughts or words?
Yeah, thanks, Neti. That was a really lovely talk. One struggle I have with emptiness teachings is the way it rubs up, I think, against some of our conventional Western views, particularly like the idea of personal accountability and responsibility. It's obviously you've got to have a bit of a nuanced relationship of my responsibility to do my duties and not cause problems for other people, alongside the perspective that when I do stuff up, it's not really me doing the stuffing up.
Were you able to hear that online?
Yes, thank you, but only barely. Maybe a little paraphrase, repeat?
Yes, so it'll be hard to do justice to the question exactly, but Bill's asking maybe one of the shadow sides of this teaching on emptiness is that it might bring into question, like, where does my responsibility lie? If there's really no boundary between me and anything else, then how do I take responsibility for my actions? Does that sound right? Do you want to add another bit?
Yeah, no, I think that's right.
Okay, yeah. Well, one way I look at it is I experience myself as separate, and you experience yourself as separate, so does everyone else. And so if I've made this commitment in our practice to want to not add to more suffering, then I'm the best one to take responsibility for the actions that I experience as coming from me. So I have autonomy. I have experience that I'm picking and choosing each thing I do. That's how I experience myself. And so it makes practical sense for me to take responsibility for it, even though on very close analysis, my existence is dependent on everything else. And so ultimately everyone's responsible for what I do, and everyone's responsible for what you do, in the ultimate sense, but on the practical, pragmatic sense, it seems to be a good idea for me to take responsibility. But my capacity to take responsibility is only because of everybody else. And me saying this and you asking that question and you thinking about it is also creating all of these conditions for other people to have the thought, I'm going to take responsibility for myself, for my actions.
Fiona, I think, wants to speak.
Oh, hi Fee, thank you.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Neti. This topic of settling really speaks to my experience. And my thought is that in sitting in Zazen, I get a chance to catch up with a whole lot of the kind of discontent and feeling unsettled. So I want to thank you. If I apply that idea of a mistaken view, it quickly transforms. But my experience is that I do have to sit and I do have to do the practice to settle, and that sort of gut feeling, that feeling of things aren't quite right. I might want to fill up with food or something like that, or avoidance and yeah and yeah and yeah I guess in response to this idea of responsibility, I think it's a really, really useful one, and that responsibility to do things willingly. I think it's useful, and I'm really enjoying the way the teachings is just sort of seeping in, where it becomes a bit more like it's not a choice, and so it becomes simple. Yeah, just that.
Thank you, Fee. I think one of the things too about doing Zazen each morning and each evening is that we're just physically kind of being in you could say a fairly equanimous, peaceful state. Even if our mind is rattling along with a lot of things, we are just sitting there. It's quite different to cleaning the kitchen or packing things or, brushing teeth and things. We just have that time a couple of times a day where we just sit there. And I find too, Fee, that when I sit there, I just become more aware of what my mind is doing and has been doing. And then it's helpful to be able to go, oh, that is good. Or no, that's probably not so helpful. Just get a little bit of time rather than all the busyness, all the unexamined time. So much of the time we're doing things, we're too busy to be sort of reflecting. So that Zazen time is really good, just to let it all settle down and then gently reflect. Yeah, thank you for that. Yes.
I have been wondering this.
I'm going to just hand you this first.
Sorry.
It's a little awkward, but it's just the best way for everybody to be able to hear.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I have been wondering this. Enlightenment. So see things as they are, but does this mean, can we say to people in the middle of the suffering, in the middle of a war, just to these people, can we say, see things as they are? Because for social change, we need, shift in our perspective to do something practically. So how can I understand this enlightenment?
So one of the teachings is that the way wisdom expresses itself is appropriately. That we cultivate an appropriate response to each moment. So if, as you're saying, some people are in a very difficult situation, in a war-torn situation, it wouldn't really be appropriate to say, just see things as they are and you'll be more at peace. That would not be an appropriate response. In that situation, the moment is calling for probably much more practical physical action. So it might be, can I help organise the food kitchen, or helping get someone into an ambulance, or whatever needs to be done. Or it might be more emotional, of like, this is not your fault. I don't agree with what's happening to you. This is terrible. What is happening to you? Can I do what I can do to help you? But when we're responding to someone like that, we can also just in our own mind see this is the mess that's created from believing the Marx. This is the mess that's created by believing that there's such things as terrorists or whatever language is being used to justify doing something. We can be reflecting on that in our own mind. And when the time is appropriate too, you know, if people are interested, we can share with them like what emptiness means, but it's got to be in a situation that it's appropriate to do that, not in the middle of a crisis. But it doesn't mean when, in the middle of a crisis, when you're not talking and thinking about things using Buddhist language with someone, it doesn't mean you're not holding that at the same time. It's just the appropriate thing, like the example I've given with the child. If they hurt their knee, you don't say, knees don't really exist. Not what you say. You say, I'll get you a Band-Aid. Or, let me kiss a little owie. But you still can, in your own sense, go like, wow, this is, this knee is like not that different to a bee's knees or any other creature's knees. Like, we're all in this together. There's no real boundary between that knee and other things. You know, we can still. That's where the internal equanimity comes in for us. We don't get caught in like, oh my God, you're hurt, I've got to help you, and we get completely tunnel visioned. There's a little part of us that kind of has a sort of, I often think of it as sort of a vertical and horizontal. We can maintain a kind of horizontal stability even while there are acute moments that require kind of sudden, more vertical action. There's a kind of horizontal stability. Yeah. All right, I think we should finish up. Thank you. We'll just finish with that, with our second chant. Beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable, I vow to become it. And we'll do 3 bows.